Hey guys, this is Nick, and here's your Linux and open source news fix for the end of January 2021. This time we have various moves to replace CentOS, some big things happening for the next Ubuntu release, and Google trying to drive people away from Chromium. Let's take a look right after this. This video is sponsored by Kernel Care Enterprise. Keeping servers safe, compliant, and ensuring constant uptime becomes a full-time job that has to be automated. To do that, you need a live patching tool that integrates with automation tools and vulnerability scanners, that is supported with the latest patches, that lets you decide what patches are rolled out across your organization, and that runs inside the firewall. Kernel Care Enterprise does all of this. It provides you with more integration, more support, and more control. It works in your local infrastructure via ePortal, a dedicated patch server that runs internally but outside your firewall. This server acts as a bridge between internal patch servers and the main Kernel Care patch server. This approach is ideal for staging and production environments that need strict isolation from external networks or require more stringent control over the patches to be applied. Try Kernel Care Enterprise for free by clicking the link in the description below. Okay, beginning with the Linux news. If you followed Red Hat or CentOS lately, you'll know that the former decided to kill the latter, or more precisely to turn it into some kind of rolling release, which isn't suitable for its prime purpose, running a server. Well, it seems like Red Hat realized that this move wouldn't drive people to go and buy Red Hat Enterprise Linux licenses in droves, but would probably push more people away, as they decided to make Red Hat Enterprise Linux free for up to 16 servers. This is a smart move to regain some goodwill with the community, and it comes without any strings attached. There won't be sales pitches or incitations to upgrade to more servers, to a paid license, or whatever. I guess it's going to make it easier for people who are depending on CentOS to remain in the Red Hat environment, although they might also be interested in the other projects that aim to replace CentOS. Speaking of replacements to CentOS, Alma Linux has its first beta out right now. Alma Linux is a distribution spearheaded by CloudLinux, which already has a lot of experience with CentOS, as they developed CloudLinux OS for 10 years, which already was a fork of Red Hat. It's 100% source compatible with Red Hat Enterprise Linux 8, and has a dedicated team and monetary investment from the company to ensure it stays up to date with every new release of Red Hat. They are basically trying to replicate what CentOS was, which is probably what most people wanted, and they implemented a one command line system to switch from CentOS to Alma Linux, so people who want to migrate their existing server fleet can do so very easily. The first beta is accessible right now, and CloudLinux says that it wants to involve the community as much as possible, so if you're interested, take it for a spin on the test system. Ubuntu announced that their next release, Ubuntu 21.04, which should release before the end of April 2021, won't be using the latest version of GNOME. Ubuntu has traditionally integrated the latest version of GNOME in each of its new releases, but not this time. It looks like GNOME 40 and GDK4 are too much of a departure from the previous release, GNOME 3.38, and that the time frame is too short for the team to deliver something good enough. The main reasons seem to be the extensions Ubuntu add to the GNOME shell that wouldn't work all that well with GNOME 40, and the Yaru theme, which needs to be updated for GDK4. It seems understandable on paper, as GNOME 40 will revamp the activities view with a dock on the bottom when Ubuntu puts their dock on the left side of the screen. But I always thought the non-LTS releases of Ubuntu to be test beds for new features, so I'm a bit surprised they didn't take the opportunity to get more people on board with GNOME 40 and GDK4 testing, even with an interface that would have been a bit rough around the edges. Even more surprising, Ubuntu 21.04 will also be the release in which Ubuntu moves to Wayland by default. The next version will replace x.org with Wayland for all AMD and Intel users and leave x.org as the default for NVIDIA users. This is a bold move, but one that has to be done. Fedora, Manjaro, and plenty of other high-profile distributions already made the switch, and Ubuntu is the largest holdout to Wayland, having more adoption. So it's only normal that they would try that out in a non-LTS release. It might not be final, and maybe the next LTS release of Ubuntu will ditch Wayland, but in the meantime, more users means more bug reports and more improvements to Wayland, so it's all good. It's just very weird that they would take the risk to move to Wayland, but not to GNOME 40 in this release. Still, let's hope it will stick and that this will be the final kick in the butt Linux needs to finally move on and switch to Wayland, with all necessary features implemented in the display servers and in the toolkits. If you don't know what Wayland is, I made a video about it a few weeks ago, check it out using the card up top. Now moving on to the open source news. KDE 5.21 is very close as its first beta was released. I will have a dedicated videos a few days before the official release, but 5.21 is looking pretty good with a lot of improvements. Among these, a new app launcher separating places and applications with a category-based layout mixing a list and icons. The launcher seems pretty good and a nice replacement for Kickoff, which was already excellent. The look and feel of applications has also been tweaked a little, with the title bar now merging with the menu bar and toolbar with a dark grey shade, which looks pretty good in my opinion. For people who want light-themed apps but a dark panel, the Breeze Twilight theme will allow that in just one click, and there is a whole new system monitor replacing K-Sysguard. It's based on the same graphs as the monitor widgets, and it looks very good and full-featured. To complete this release, you can expect KDE to work a lot better with Wayland with reduced latency and support for multi-refresh rate monitor setups, among other changes. Google is making moves to try and stem the tide of Chromium-based browsers that threaten the hegemony of Chrome on the internet. They decided to remove access to a number of Google APIs from Chromium that made the browser and everything based on it a lot more useful. These APIs allowed Chromium to sync with a Google account, to use geolocation, click to call, check spelling, access contacts, or even translate elements on a web page. Chromium won't be able to use these features starting March 15th, 2021, and no, before you ask, older versions of Chromium also won't be able to use them as Google is revoking the API keys. Google is saying that they discovered that these keys allowed people to access all of these features, but as they've been available for the last 7 years, I get the feeling it's a more controlled move to try and limit the usability of Chromium and force other browser manufacturers to build their own features instead of just rebranding Chromium and getting an instant Chrome competitor. Now, on the hardware side of things, System76 has yet another laptop to offer, the Data Pro. This one is a bit special though, as it's one of the first to use the Intel Xe graphics. Not to go into detail because I'm not a specialist in that, but this thing is a huge step forward for graphics on Intel platforms, a lot more powerful than the onboard graphics previous CPUs used. It's still no desktop class or fully dedicated GPU, but it should offer a lot more flexibility for using the device for video editing, graphics design, or light gaming. The laptop comes with Pop! OS and System76's open firmware with Core Boot, and sports a 15-inch matte 1080p IPS display and 11th gen Intel CPUs. It can be configured up to 64GB of RAM and 4TB of storage, and it starts at $1,099. As always, it looks like a good device, but I'd love to see System76 applying the same design chops they used on their Thelio desktops to craft their own laptop from the ground up and not use a Clevo or Tongfeng design. Now, Tuxedo also has a new laptop out, and it's called the Infinity Book S15. This device looks amazing, and I already told you everything there is to know about it, since it's based on the same chassis as the Data Pro from System76 I just talked about a few seconds ago. Tuxedo, as often, goes a bit further in the customization of the device, with a choice in the Intel Xe graphics card offering a more powerful variant, and a huge choice of keyboard languages. You can also order a Windows license pre-installed inside a virtual machine on your Linux distro, which you can also choose between Tuxedo OS, OpenSUSE or Ubuntu, with or without encryption. The laptop starts at €937, including taxes, so it seems to me it's a bit cheaper on Tuxedo's website than on System76, although you're not getting the open firmware here. As always with these devices, your choice will be more dictated on which company you want to support, or where you're ordering from and where the company actually delivers. And to complete this video with some gaming news, Denuvo, a provider of DRM and anti-cheat software for games running on Windows, announced that Denuvo will now be available as a Steamworks library to make it easier to include in various games. Gaming on Linux asked the developers what it meant for Linux gaming, and it turns out there might be good news here. They answered saying that they don't plan on blocking Linux users from single-player or non-competitive multiplayer, even if they ran the game through Wine and Proton. the games will still start and we won't have to install any kernel module or driver for them to work. Linux users will still be reported as running at a lower level of anti-cheat, so game developers might decide to not accept them in the competitive modes. Denuvo says they are going to try and convince developers not to prevent Linux users from competing in online matches when they run the games through Wine, but in the end it will be the game developers' call. They still haven't planned to work on a Linux-specific version of Denuvo, but they say that if a company wants them to, they'll be happy to do it. Do you have a few older games that run pretty badly with Wine and Proton? Well, if these games use an engine that has an open source reimplementation, you're in luck. A tool called LuxTorpeda can now make sure that these older games run well by automatically downloading and setting up these open source engines and using them to run your game. The best part is, the tool isn't another launcher or game manager. It's actually handled just like a Proton version in Steam. So all you have to do is have the game on Steam, open its properties, and select LuxTorpeda as the compatibility tool to run them. It will then automatically detect the right game engine to use and set it up so you can run your game. For now, it supports games like Kaiser 3, Doom 3, Morrowind, Return to Castle Wolfenstein, or Warzone 2100. LuxTorpeda seems like an amazing project, and I'll make sure to try it out with Morrowind. VKD3D Proton, the DirectX 12 to Vulkan translation layer, has begun the work needed to support ray tracing on Linux. This means that games that make use of DirectX ray tracing will also offer it, in the future, to Linux gamers when the game runs with Proton. This basically completes the scope of what is needed to have feature parity between Windows and Linux gaming in terms of the technologies the game can use, so it's exciting to see work starting on that topic. Of course, you'll still need a graphics card that supports it and a beefy PC to handle all of that, and keep in mind it's just the first steps, it's not ready yet. And finally, Wine 6.1 was also released, with support for Arabic text shaping, the use of VKD3D 1.2 to handle DirectX 12 in Wine, and support for Rosetta 2's memory layout. This last point means that Wine 6.1 should work fine on M1 Macs, which is amazing for people using these devices. Wine 6.1 also fixes 37 bugs, including for Rollercoaster Tycoon 3, Skyrim, Mass Effect, the Battle.net launcher, The Witcher 3, Sniper Elite V2, Batman Arkham Origins, or The Sims 3. As always, we can expect this work to land in the next release of Proton directly on Steam. And this concludes this video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, don't hesitate to like or dislike if you didn't. You can also subscribe and turn on notifications to get more videos like this one. If you really want to help support the channel, you can also join my amazing Patreon subscribers and YouTube members and get access to a weekly patroncast and the right to vote on the videos I'll cover. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!